There seems to be a growing trend in the misuse of drugs and alcohol on farms. The other area of concern is, given that a lot of workers operate equipment and chemicals, that they may be on prescription drugs which may be impacting on their judgment and their coordination. It is important, if you suspect that an employee is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that you refer to section 14 of the Farmer's Guide. There are issues about privacy, and it's important that if you are going to take action with someone who you suspect is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that you do it so that you don't prejudice your case. This could include referring an individual to a doctor or nurse, and we appreciate the difficulties there are in rural areas where a doctor or nurse may not be readily available. However, having a policy in place, and if you have reasonable suspicion that someone is adversely affected by drugs or alcohol, then you need to act, because you have that obligation to provide a safe working environment, not only to the individual but also the other employees. To minimise the risk of invasion of privacy, we would highly recommend that if you have a reasonable suspicion that someone is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that they be interviewed at the time and be invited to have a support person present. If you have a reasonable suspicion that someone's under the influence of drugs or alcohol and you have a witness present, it would be worthwhile encouraging that employee to be taken home, whether you drive them or someone else drives them home. Alternatively, they must not be left near the worksite where they could be a danger either to themselves or others. It may then be worthwhile on the following day to meet with them and explain your observations from the incident. Ask them if they were under the influence of drugs or alcohol, in which case issue them with a warning that a repeat will result in the termination of their employment. If, on the other hand, they refuse to leave the premises whilst they're under the influence, and you are reasonably clear in your mind that the individual is under the influence of drugs or alcohol, it would be appropriate at the time to issue them with a warning at that point if they refuse to leave the workplace. But under no circumstances should you allow them to drive home or to their place of residence under that influence. As a word of precaution, if you do send someone home, I'd be inclined to do it with them being on pay rather than without pay, because that might raise other issues about their industrial entitlements.